Hello from the Yarn Closet. This is Laura in Southern Arizona. Oofda, see that? I think there's a kink here. That shows how it is cut going more at a angle down towards the front. But also when I pull it back, that's the deal. It's okay, Mitzi, you can get in there. Hold on. Come here, Mitzi. Where are you, Mitzi? Mitzi, come here, Mitzi. What's a good girl, Mitzi? That's a good girl. But you can be in there too. See? That's okay. So I have a couple of chairs in here that I can sit at with my machines, for looking at things with magnification, for doing flatbed knitting. I have another chair where I can sit and look out the window. Come on, Mitzi. And then I have dog cat bed, litter box, and also a bin by the window so that they can get up and look out the window. Because I very frequently have a friend in here with me if I'm in here hanging out. I don't actually hang out in here all that often because it seems very antisocial. Also, it's either very, very cold or very, very hot. There's like a little window a couple times a year where it's the temperature I like. So that's just the reality of it. I do my podcasts out here. I use my machines, but I'm not usually here for long stretches. I try to be in the house and be more social. I dislike that the four of us live in such a big house and are always in a different space. That bugs me a lot. Go, what are you doing? Can you see out the window better from here? Okay. But I'm gonna talk about some stuff. So you get down and you go sit on the heating pad or whatever. So it's about 8:20 in the morning, and it's still only in about 40 degrees, end of February, but we have had some 80-degree days. See, little one, in her diaper. And I have managed in the last month to go from the last half of the year where I was averaging about 2,000 steps a day to ramp it up in this last month to get to about 3,500. My goal is to try to get to 5,000, an average of 5,000, and stay there over the summer. This is a challenge because it gets so hot that I have to go out early, and the fear factor of going out like just as it's getting sunlight. That's my son. He went for his little run. He's going for a run. He's trying to do it 5 days a week. And when I say a little run, I mean like a big lap. We have 5 acres. So he goes on about a 1,200 step little run. It's hard to go at first light because then you are waking up the animals that are bedded down. The deer, the javelina, the coyotes, they're not really bedded down. The javelinas and the coyotes are more active throughout the night, but they do bed down. The bobcats, and then you've got the rattlesnakes at different times of the year. This is why I get paranoid about doing that first light business when it's in the heat of the year. And it's very hard for me to do things late in the afternoon, evening, because my eyesight's kind of shot at that point. I'm legally blind, and it's changed a lot in the last year. And, for safety reasons, I have to balance these things out. So it works really well for me 5 days a week during the school year when she's in school, when we get home at just before 8, to go out for 20 minutes and hike through the 5 acres, up and down and around in these little wash areas and paths that we've taken the tractor through to make it a little bit safer for me. And since I started, instead of doing big loops, since I started doing this back and forth and windy business, it's helped me up my steps quite a bit and get a little bit more workout, because it's been new and different. But I just hope I can continue with that, that excitement. Some of the other excitement is I did finish a sock where I did 8 rows before I started the decreases. And instead of knitting 2 and then decreasing, I just knit 1 and then decreased. But I will say that this does fit quite a bit. It's a little bit looser. Now they say you want your socks to be really densely knit and tight on your feet, and that you will get, like, you won't get holes as quickly. But I've done that, and I've done this, which is a more comfortable knit. It's a bit looser. You can tell that it's not real dense. The toe and the heel are more dense. But I honestly don't see a huge difference between the looser knit and the tighter knits. And when I say tighter knits, I'm like, this might be 7 stitches to the inch where this is 9. But that is a big difference on something like a sock. And I did say inch, so but this is much more comfortable. So I'm on the verge of working on the next one. This is helping me when I feel like, okay, it's in the evening and I can feel like in the half an hour, I'm going to make more of an accomplishment on that. And getting those little bursts of accomplishment always helps. Plus, I don't know if I really went into detail, but I had bought, remember how I had the Danish sweater on interchangeables? So I bought on Amazon a set, and instead of getting 375s, I got 3.25s. They were convinced when I sent them the pictures and the information that I was being scammy. I was just trying to get a free set of needles. So I ended up buying another pair of needles from a different place, and I got them. But I just got them. Like, I got them yesterday, so I managed to swap out the needles. And I'm wondering if that's why I was like so not into this, because of the needle problems I was having. I read a quote on, was it Threads or YouTube, about self-ableism, something. Basically, it's like self-sabotage for people with some kind of a disability. Because I am knitting by feel and I'm kind of scraping my fingers, I do twist a lot, which makes the interchangeables not really all that effective. There's been a few sets that work better. They tend to be the wooden ones, but those thinner needles on the wooden ones, I've like broken over time. And I've known people who've had Licca needles and broken them. So I also had to get a much larger needle so that the stitches aren't as compact, which bugs me. I like the stitches really compact because you can go faster when they're really compact. And I can do a traveling loop to help do that, but I'm just not gonna, I'm just gonna try to enjoy the process. And If I have one sweater on the needles for 6 months, but by the time it's done, I actually wear it a lot or find myself grabbing it more frequently, then honestly, that's better than pounding out a sweater a month and not really wearing them, donating them, whatever. I find it very hard because you know there's this IKEA effect. So you build your own IKEA furniture, and because you've built it, even though it might have some imperfections, you're okay with it. However, that's so bizarre to me because if I paint my own room, but I know there's a blotch somewhere, I can't help but see it all the time. It bugs me. If I knit my own sweater and it doesn't turn out the way I expected, it really bugs me. If I draw my own tattoo design and, you know, work with the tattoo artist and it gets tattooed and it's not exactly what I expected, it really bugs me. They draw it and do it, I'm good, whatever. So that's where I'm at in my crafting life. Plus, I am, where is it? Oh, it's not in here. It's in the other thing. I have 5 skeins of some Maritime Family Fiber, Briggs and Little. It's like a chunky yarn, but it's like an off-white. I don't know that I would really wear that in a sweater or a cardigan. So I'm doing a gauge swatch to do a chunky just big kind of pashmina. I don't know if I really love this pattern. It's hard for me to visualize, although there's one little chunk in this picture down here that where you can kind of tell, and I've been able to see that there is some eyelet to it. I can tell by the pattern there's eyelet, but because it's so chunky, it's still going to be plenty warm. So I'm thinking about that. I love the look of this, but I don't love the instructions for it. I would also like to knit a reader's shawl. I've wanted to for years, but I just never have, knit or crochet. I may end up using my Arizona rainbow for that kind of a thing. I've yet to kind of figure that out. Yes, the hair is growing. It's growing. Just had a conversation with the husband last night. He was befuddled. Something about missing my long hair. I'm like, what do you mean? Well, you know, it was really nice. No, I don't know that it was really nice because you never once said, oh, your hair's so pretty today. Oh, you look lovely. For 10 years, I've been explaining that I am legally blind and I need verbal feedback. If there's something you like about my appearance, you better give me some verbal feedback. Otherwise, I don't have a clue. Because all I can tell when I look in the mirror is, you know, one area. What I tend to see is big stinking forehead, flatness. That it feels like when it gets longer that it's just pulling down my face and just I have just a big stinking forehead. And yes, I've tried variety of bangs. That has not worked. We've all sat here on and off over these last few years because I had it really long and straight, apparently gorgeous, although nobody ever said, And when it was below my boob and I started hacking it off by inches, no comments were ever made. So that by the time I was 49, I was like, you know, let's try some shortness. And I got kind of here and I got kind of a do here. And I mean, some things that were good. And then I found that I kind of like a blunt, shorter bob. It was easy because it was easier when it was shorter to get it wet and to blow dry it a little bit every day. And I felt like I had a do and a style. And with my lipstick, which is about the only thing I do, matte, Maybelline, I think, matte lip stain, made me feel good. These glasses have started catching the hair all the time and are really scratched. So I had to try to order them again. They are not. So then I tried to find other ones. I couldn't. So then I found some that are more rounded. And I've looked back because there are times where I'd go the very square. And then there are times where I've had the rounded over the years. And I've noticed that when I had the longer hair and the rounded, that I felt like maybe my face looked a little bit better. So I ordered some of the rounded ones. So we'll see how that goes. Because for a long time, I couldn't really find a rounded, but I could find this kind of a thing, which oddly enough, I couldn't find in a tortoise. I like having a darker color, although I did get a lot of compliments when I wore these. But I don't feel like, because of my vision, like the color blurs in. I don't know that the shape does a lot for me. And yeah, so I don't know. So it'll be interesting to see how I feel about the round ones. They did come in a lighter color, I think it was a 3-pack. A lighter color, a tortoise, and a sunglass. So, and now people are gonna be asking, what are you doing with this? I'm thinking long and hard. I don't know that my daughter's ever gonna want to knit, really. Or she's just gonna be much older before she comes to it. I don't know that the kids with mild to moderate ADHD or whatever it is that is predominantly affecting this generation of children, I don't know that they can do stuff at as early of an age that takes a lot of repetition and commitment. So I'm just hanging on to them for now. And I've been thinking, my son was writing this week because he was joining a competition for writing. And we are trying to find places in town to maybe volunteer. I'd like him to be able to volunteer without me. And I would just sit at the library for that time. And if I can get him set up in some kind of volunteer deal where I can be sitting at the library on a regular basis, I've been thinking about kind of pushing the librarians to, well, can we put up a sign? Can we market a little bit for a knit and crochet hour or time, you know, like if I'm there on a regular basis, and see if I couldn't drum up some interest in that kind of a thing. Apparently it's been tried in the past and it's never really gone off. And that's fine. But just because it didn't go off then, I don't know why we can't keep trying. And maybe if we marketed free lessons, because I love teaching people how to do this stuff. So then having something like this would come in handy. Because right now I have realized that the small changes you can make really do add up and build up. And if not using the interchangeables, if I do have to build up to, even just because of affordability, one pair of each size, and and trying to, I really fight the cast-on-itis. I really try to only have 1 or 2 small projects on the needles and a sweater. I try not to have more than 1 sweater on a go. And I try to mix in a crochet project here and there. So I try to have far less whips, because then I feel like I'm never really accomplishing anything if I have too many things on the go. If I've only got like 3 things on the go, then there's always this kind of change happening, and that feels good. I do like the accomplishment. I do like getting things done, but I also like, as hard as socks are for me, I knit a lot because they get used a lot, even though they get worn through a lot. I like that. The fingerless gloves, the cowls. You know, that's my deal. So what's your deal this week? I appreciate that you're here. I see that we've gotten a couple new subscribers. I would really love to build up the subscribers. See, now all of a sudden I feel like I'm just glasses and forehead, because this is like a cow sucked my head. And there's no way when it's longer to really get it floofy. And I'm not gonna wrap my hair like we did growing up to build up texture here. And if you're gonna say product, I'm not in a household where I can devote to getting ready every day because of nap schedules and whatever. I did actually put some of that root product for volume in today and stuff. And this is just where I got to. Well, then you're not doing it right. I can't hold a comb and a hair dryer. It's too hard on my shoulder business and my neck. It doesn't work. So I have either a really good Conair with the straight hair dryer. It's more straight. With a brush attachment, they can do straight. Or I have a thicker curling brush, but not the really gargantuan ones. And that's what works for me. I have no more flat irons or curling irons or any of that stuff. Yes, I love you. I love you. I know. You're so cute. Even with your little haircut. Okay. Yeah. So all the little tiny changes that we make, they really do build up and help minimize the stress and the strain. And I feel like that's very true for like my son who's on the spectrum, myself, elderly people, people with chronic illness. Yeah, I know. And so that's my focus, paring down things. Like, it drives me nuts. We've got so many bowls in the house, it drives me nuts. And there's 5 bowls in particular that we have that chip a lot and are slightly chipped. And I hate having any kind of dishes that are slightly chipped because it builds bacteria and all this stuff. But my husband really likes those. I really like the kind that don't chip, the Corelle. But he doesn't like the shape of the bowl or whatever. But to have all of it, because we've got so limited space in our kitchen, it's so bunched up. It bugs me. We've got far too many Tupperwares, because here's the thing. My husband insists that we keep all this plastic Tupperware. 90% of the time, we only use our glass storage containers. I prefer the glass. They don't stain. I can see better through the glass what's actually in it. So, like, if it was just my kitchen, it would look vastly different. There'd be far more space in the cupboards. I am a firm believer in the minimalist, the minimal mom, Dawn. She's from Minnesota. I know that's why I kind of like her, because I'm from Minnesota. But they have very minimal stuff in their kitchen, and she's got 4 kids, so they're a family of 6. And she's like, and it works great. Because one of the things that I've found is, so we've got all these plates and bowls and stuff. So we run the dishwasher at least once a day. We do hand wash a lot of the big pots and pans. If I could find a dishwasher, like I would like a drawer dishwasher, I think that would be absolutely the way to go, because then you'd have an extra shelf space or drawer space in the kitchen, because it's about half the size of a regular dishwasher. But they have shorter cycles too. I would be much happier running a shorter cycle twice a day, having half the dishes, and having a little bit more storage space. And someday I will be a single old lady, and my kids will just be off doing their young people life, because I was old when I had them. And I will have my tiny little home and all of my lessness, my more minimalist, Asian-inspired stuff. And maybe my son will still live with me. That would be interesting. We often have this conversation. It stresses him out that he is 16, that there's this pressure in the United States, like 18 is baked, get out. I mean, he'll be 17 when he graduates high school. We've talked about him doing at least 2 years at community college. So he'd be 19, and then working. I would like to get him volunteering between now and then, to kind of ease him into life. The idea of him still being around at 25 or 30 doesn't bother me in the least. Because also being on the spectrum, their emotional development is a little bit different. And I think you need to take that into consideration. And my youngest will be 18 when he's 25, so, what do I care if he's still around? And I'm not kicking her out at 18 either, because whatever college she wants to do, live at home, it's a lot cheaper. I thoroughly understand that I could very easily still be living at home with 2 kids at 65, because they're not yet done with their schooling, and that's the way that I can help them. And if it slows down my steps into that kind of retirement scenario, I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that. But it's really weird to think about and to talk about, because I remember being in my 30s when my dad retired at 65, and him moving in with me, and him being very persnickety about, I don't want to live in a 2-bedroom townhouse with you. It's got to be a big house, a 3-bedroom big house. I have to have my office. If you don't work a job, why do you need an office? Why do you need a home office? And I fell for it. I shouldn't have. But I did. We all try to, as women especially, accommodate other people. The older I get, the more I see that men in general do not try to accommodate other people. They just don't. We were talking about grandkids. It doesn't bother me that I will be very old if I'm even alive when my kids have kids. And my husband's like, but here's the thing. If the oldest has a kid in the next few years, what's it matter? Because I don't really want to be involved until that kid's like 10 or 12 and, then doing this or doing that. And I'm thinking, so you want a 10 or 12-year-old grandson to go fishing with, which was the example given. He doesn't actually like fishing. Yet when we had the 10 to 12-year-old boy in our house, you didn't take him out to shoot pool or to go fishing or to do anything. I actually said to him last night, because I've been reading about different things, and I said, I think that based on the environments that you've participated in your life, firemen, military, other male-dominated organizations, I think you're a man who really just likes the company of other men. Because you don't keep up on or ask, hey, Prue, how was your Lego club? Hey, Laura, you haven't been to the chiropractor in a few weeks. Is that why your neck's really bothering you? Should we make an appointment? Let's get you in the next couple days. Let's do that. That shows, and he thinks when I say this shit that I am talking like I am from Pluto. But I try to convey that from the female perspective, like that's what we're taught, is how you show care, engagement, interest in other people. Support. When a woman says, I don't feel supported by you, that's what she means. You're not talking about or initiating conversation in a way that prioritizes something you've noticed about her. So if all I hear is 3 years later that you haven't really liked this short hair journey, it was great that you didn't complain about it this whole time, but we wouldn't have gotten there necessarily if you'd ever said you liked the long hair. If I'd ever gotten positive feedback, with no feedback at all, I'm thinking it's not a big deal to do whatever it is I want and come to whatever conclusion I want. But then when I come to that conclusion and I now need to go in and get a haircut every 4 to 8 weeks, and yet that's not, hey, do you need to go in and get a haircut? You want to make an appointment? But Laura, why should I have to say that to you? It's your haircut. You make your appointments. You figure it out. Right. But women are also raised to not be a burden on society. We're going to have 45 minutes between the end of your haircut and when the kid gets out of school. What are we going to do? I hate just sitting there. I hate having to just sit here when we pick her up. That makes me not want to do it. Well, I'm not saying I won't do it. But you're saying you dislike the whole thing, so I'm not going to ask you to do something you dislike. Like, do we get it? Now, how do I translate this and teach it to my children? Because I'm not trying to pick on people. I'm using personal examples from my life. I feel more comfortable doing this because I know it's very rare that my husband ever sees one of my podcasts. He doesn't look at them on a regular basis. Our oldest son has apparently some kind of podcast thing going on, but nobody will give me the YouTube address. I would watch it on a regular basis. I love the kid. Like, there's such a disconnect. And I don't think it's just my personal examples and experience. How do we get to a place with less of a disconnect? Because I've also seen my parents become more and more isolated as they get older. And I want to get more and more involved with people. I'm sick of being isolated. I have been isolated the majority of my life. I'm sick of it. So think ahead. And another thing I read in one of my books recently was, if you do one thing Like if you have one marriage and you're able to, instead of having 3 to 5 marriages over 60 years, if you're able to stick in one marriage and know that there's going to be sometimes years that are a challenge, that you know that the first 10 years is not going to be the same as the second 10 years, as the third, whatever. But by the time you get to the other end of that, imagine where you could be versus this constant change. And I'm not saying that one is right and one is wrong, because I also think my true belief at this stage in my life is that monogamy was great when you got married and you were dead 20 years later, 25 years later, 30 years later. But when you can get married and still be married 60 years later, that's a hell of a challenge. And there might need to be some changes in there. And I don't know that everybody's willing to change at the same rate. And I don't know that everybody's patient. I seem to believe that it's okay if you want to be a serial monogamist and have 5 to 10 years with somebody and then move to the next thing. If we could do that without being pissed off about it and without breaking the bank every time we do it, so that your lifestyle, life level, economically continues to diminish. That's also not right. That should not be an end result. These are my many musings. My many, many musings. I appreciate you're here. Like, subscribe, share, whatevs. I appreciate it. I'm going to keep knocking away every week, and that's been my goal for 2024. I don't know if I've made it, but that's my goal. We're shooting for it. I'm going to try to keep my steps up, and even though it might take until the heat of the year to get to that 5,000, that's my goal, is that hopefully I can get to a place where I'm doing that and I'm just feeling better. Because even though I went off that stupid med, and 2 years later, because nobody told me it was keeping my weight down, and 2 years later my weight is up, I'm still okay. I mean, here's the bizarre thing, I'm still in roughly the same size pants. I wore 6s and 8s back then, predominantly 8s. I don't like tight. I'm still in predominantly an 8, occasionally a 10, a few days a month. And so what's the difference, really? I don't know that the number or the weight number really matters. I think that at my age, with my hormones where they're at, I am supposed to be thicker in the middle, and that's just okay. It's just okay. I mean, I'm a thin person still. I don't get it. We're supposed to evolve and change. And they say that you want to be a few extra pounds by the time you get to 60. You want to be a few extra pounds because that is safer and healthier. You are less likely to have a fall and actually break a hip, a knee, and need a replacement. And so that's, like, once again, I'm weighing what's best for me and trying to live that out. I hope we can all do that by looking with our hearts first and not our eyes.